So over the past 2 years, I've gotten to try an assortment of different controllers with varying amounts of paddles and in some cases copious amounts of issues. So today we'll be talking about paddles and how many you need. Generally, you'll see controllers running with 2, 4, or 6 paddles, so those are the numbers we'll be running with in this video. Also a little minigame. Take a shot every single time I say the word paddles. By the end of this video, you'll have the full GTA 5 weed distorted screen shit going on. But I won't keep you guys waiting any longer. If you like it. If you sub it, stuff like that later in the video. Let's get into it. So clearly we can't start with the guy that's 6'4" and weighs 250 pounds and he's a beast. We can't start with that guy, alright? And the video would be 2 minutes. We have to start with the guy who's 5'9", he's underweight, he's kind of dog shit. We're going to start off with 2 paddles. The majority of controllers have 4 paddles, and a lot of them you can take off paddles, so when you see people running a 2 paddle configuration, most of the time it's by choice. But sometimes, like with the Dominator here, you only got 2. 2 paddles is an extremely easy experience. It's something that's easy to learn and also easy to use. Something that you won't really get confused with all that often. Like for example, I use the Powerade Fusion Pro in Fortnite here and there, and I can use 4 paddles, but I choose to use 2. 2 paddles is extremely simple, especially for things like first and third person shooters. If you're someone who your hands move really fast and you don't want to risk skipping over a paddle or getting confused in the middle of a game, 2 paddles usually works for more competitive based games. The only issue with 2 paddles is that you're limited. So like I said, on Fortnite I'd use 2 on my Fusion Pro. The issue with that is that now that I'm only using 2, I can only jump and edit. I can't use any of the other buttons for any of the other ABXY buttons. So I'm sitting here with my thumb off my thumbstick all the time still. But that works for some people. I'd recommend this for simple actions. So a game that isn't too complicated, something like Warzone or a driving game where you need to shift. 2 paddles seems like it would work for most people, or if you're someone who wants a more simplified first-person shooter experience, something that's not this or God forbid that. But for people who are willing to take the time to learn it, and for people who are they have better motor skills than I, then 4 paddles might be the way to go for you. 4 paddles is something you'll see generally on like Elite controllers, Fusion Pros, Scuffs, Battle Beavers, Evil controllers, you name it. Now this is a bit more difficult to learn. Not only is it double the amount of paddles, but you have a lot more in a cramped space, which is one of the reasons I really couldn't use the Elite Series 1 and the Elite Series 2 all that well. The paddles were just a little too close. So with a design like this, which is the exact same as the Elite controllers, some people might not be able to use all 4 paddles, but if you can, I'd recommend it. The thing about 4 paddles is that when it comes to the Elite controllers layout, it gets a bit tricky in first-person shooters. Like I said, I can't use 4 paddles on this controller, and I didn't use 4 paddles on either of my Elite controllers when I had them. So 4 paddles can be tricky for some people. It's tricky for me, but in some games I can use it very, very easily, like Warzone. 4 paddles allows for a lot higher of a skill level, but like I said, it does take time, especially if you're a first-time buyer, or this is your first time using something with paddles at all. 4 paddles is a really big jump. With 4 paddles, though, you can completely remove ABXY from your, I was going to say something, I don't fucking remember though. You could stop using ABXY altogether with 4 buttons though, but unfortunately in my games I end up using the paddles for things other than ABXY, which is why in Fortnite I still only use 3 on this controller. Actually, most of the time I'm using 2. Sometimes I'm using 3 though. If you're looking for a controller with 4 paddles, I'm going to leave this down in the description because 4 paddle controllers, I think this is the best all around in terms of price. Durability, kind of, that's a little finicky, but it's a layout that most people could use. It's in a form factor most people can use. It's something the majority could enjoy. I'll also leave this down in the description, but actually, you know what? No, not leaving that down below. I'll leave this thing's counterpart, the Eliminator, down below, which has 4 non-removable buttons, but it's better. So 4 paddles, ABXY, maybe first-person shooters if you're a little bit more competent up here, and 2 paddles for a very simplified experience. Now, what about 6? Now, clearly there isn't 6 on the bottom, but there is 2 on the front, which means this controller comes out to a total of 6 buttons. 6 buttons, dude! So, first off, and most obviously, you can reach your max skill level attainable, possible, physically possible, theoretically, on these controllers. Now, there's only 2 that I know of off the top of my head here. If you get it custom, you can get one from Battle Beaver. It's gonna cost you about $300 though, and that comes with 6 buttons, but you could also get the Razor Wolverine Ultimate here, which is $160, brand new from the Razer website. You can get them for like 140, 150 off Amazon. This has 2 buttons on the front, 4 buttons on the bottom. This is one of the craziest controllers, and in my opinion, this is the best controller on the market right now in terms of the skill level you can attain. The issue with 6-button controllers, though, is that not only are they quite rare, they're really expensive. But if you are looking to become the best of the best, I could recommend 6 buttons. But that's really the only way I could recommend 6 buttons, is if you wanted to be the ultimate player. 6 buttons is mainly for shooters, but I use this controller and I use it for my driving games. Like, I have clutch right here, and I have shift up, shift down right here for my driving games. I use it for my universe games. I use it for my first-person shooters, my third-person shooters, pretty much everything. Now, for people who don't have buttons on their controller at all, let's say you're going from stock controller to something like this is going to be the hardest thing to learn. I used an Elite controller with 2 paddles for a while before switching to this, and it took me less than a week to adjust. But for someone who's brand new to this shit, I wouldn't recommend getting a controller like this first time around. That's just not a good fucking idea. So if you've had a controller, let's say you had an Elite and it broke, or let's say you have a controller and you're looking for a different experience, or maybe let's say you don't like the one you have. This thing is insane, and I'd only recommend it for the most dedicated of players. But it's crazy. 6 buttons is fucking crazy. It's not for everybody. It's expensive as shit. It's kind of risky, especially with this controller. And on top of all that, the majority of people can't use 6 buttons. I use all these buttons, but I constantly have to fucking remind myself to stop pressing Y and stop pressing B on my faceplate buttons. So with 6 buttons, not only can you completely remove ABXY from the buttons that you use, you can also map other actions to the other 2 buttons that would make your gameplay experience much more seamless. 6-button controllers are insane. 4-button controllers are my recommended. In fact, if you're someone who doesn't know how many paddles you want to use yet, I'd recommend the Fusion Pro. You can take all 4 off. It's only $80, super cheap, super reliable, not the most reliable thing in the market, but it's a nice controller and I could recommend it. If you're a crackhead, or if you're someone who wants to have a higher attainable skill level but with 4 paddles, the brother to this controller, the Razer Wolverine TE, which I'll also have linked down below, that's the best pro controller on the market in my opinion. It has the least amount of durability reports, it's the most reliable by far. It also has 4 buttons, RGB, it's wired, it's a kick-ass controller, definitely recommend it. It's only about $120. You can get it on Amazon for like $100 too, if you're not brain dead. Crackheads, this controller. Everybody else, this thing. No one get this fucking sucks. Now, in my personal opinion, as a lot of you guys know, I still use the Razer Wolverine Ultimate. I love the Razer Wolverine Ultimate. But it's a controller that's both a bit risky, and it's something most people probably couldn't benefit all that much from, because 6 buttons is a lot. It's a lot to deal with, but it is my favorite controller of all time, and this Fusion Pro is a close second. Like I said, all these will be down in the description below. I really hope I could have helped some people out with this, because I remember when I started off with paddles, I was constantly switching from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. I could not decide what I wanted to do. So I hope, even if I helped at least one person with this video, that's fucking successful. We did it, boys. Mission accomplished. I need to go die now. Real quick before we go, I need to shout out our members. Huge shout out to the console tier boys, The Ballin' Boy, JG, Waterless, Heberbrine3, Tough, Snowy Ice Cream, God, XO Casper, Morhib Hussein, and a huge shout out to the boys in our PC Master Race tier, Ra, D Jacques, and Noah Jacques, who are, yes, indeed, they are the same person. I'd love to give a huge thank you to my members. I love you guys all to pieces. Back to Kuda whenever I recorded this video, because I don't remember. I love you guys, though. If you guys love me, you can sub down below and leave a like if you enjoyed. I would leave a dislike, but that's just me. I love you guys, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.